Alright, we got this 2011 or 12 Malibu. I don't know if you can tell. The steering wheel sitting here shaking at idle. I'm not touching it, it's just sitting there shaking. What's going on is the steering wheel shakes at idle, and then sometimes the power steering assist goes out completely. And it's pretty common on these cars. I looked it up. It's got a C0545 It's a steering wheel torque input sensor, which is kind of what we figured it was going to be anyway. Sometimes the motors go out, but we're going to change the input sensor today. And the only thing, if you're going to do this yourself, you will need a good scan tool to reset the angles afterwards. So keep that in mind. They're not too hard to change. You have to take the steering column out, but you will have to have a good scan tool to zero the steering wheel back out once you install it back in the car. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about doing this on your own. Anyway, so we'll start by taking apart all the panels inside here and getting down to the steering column. Alright, the first panel you're going to want to take off is this one over here. It just pops out with pot clips. You'll take that one off, and then you'll have this side one here that goes to the console. That just pops out. You'll want to pop your console up and put it in a low gear to get to. There's some bolts back here you have to get to, and after you get those out, this will be the next piece you're going to work on. This is a pretty big piece here. It covers up the lower dash. It has 2 bolts, 7mm, 2 7mm on the side, and then it has some 7mm behind here that you have to get out, and then the rest pulls out. You have to deal with the OBD connector that'll pop out, and then you have one for the lights. I guess it's for the lights, and then that should remove it. And the next thing we're going to do is remove this panel here. So it shouldn't take too long to get down to this part. The most challenging part is dealing with the big panel. It gets kind of stuck behind the console panel over there. But anyway, we'll take this off next, and that'll give us clear access to the steering column. Alright, so there's 4 7mm bolts to hold this on. It's a steel brace. Drop that out. And now you can see we have access to the steering column, so we'll get to work on pulling this out. Alright, so here's the column down. What I did to get to this point was I took out 3 bolts. We still got to loosen the wiring up, but after that it should pull, well, actually 4 bolts. You have the one that goes to your joint under there. Which is this bolt. You'll see it where your shaft comes up out of the firewall, hooks to your steering column. You have this bolt. You got to pull that one out, and then there's 3 bolts to hold that mount the steering column onto the body. You got a long one with a nut that goes this way, and that's back there, and then you got 2 in the front like most steering columns have. This one and this one. You know, you'll just go up from this end. I'd like to show it to you, but it's pretty hard to show it to you with me being under there and having the camera. But you'll see it once you get under there. So we'll have to take this this wiring off, and then we got a few plugs under there, and then we'll pull this whole thing out. Alright, to get to this wiring harness, you need to take off the cover that covers the steering. There's 3 7mm bolts, and these pop off, these 2 ends. And then you just go through and take your harness off. So now we'll go underneath and take the harness off by the motor, and then this thing should pull out. Alright, once you get the steering column out, you'll want to separate this, slide this out. What you're after right here is it's inside here. So we'll slide this out, and then we'll get down to here. Alright, once you slide it out, then you're down to this. You have this snap ring here. We have to pull that out, and that'll pull this casing off. So get your snap ring tool and pull that snap ring out. So I got a little ahead of it. Once you get this out, which this is a pretty big one for automotive, you're going to need a big set. I had a smaller set, then I put a screwdriver to block it. But you need to get that, and then this will pull off. And once that pulls off, you're down to this. This will be farther down, obviously. This is held on by this. So take a small pick and pull this out. Get your wiring loose from the motor, and then it should pull straight up. And once you pull it straight up, we'll set the new one in. And these have a pin on it that you don't want to pull until it's set in there. So just remove this one and we'll set the new one in there. Alright, once you got the new sensor in there, you want to line up this red mark with the slot in the shaft. You may have to rotate this a little bit to get it to line up and then to clock it right. And then once you get it all in there and put that round retainer ring back in, then you can pull this pin and go ahead and start reassembling it. Alright, once you got this back on, you just slide the shaft back in. It only goes on one way, and then you can start putting it back in the car. Alright, so what I usually do is I start that, put the steering shaft into the knuckle back there and start that so it can't fall out. And then I put the wiring already back together and put the case back on. So now we're just going to bolt this thing back up and hook a few wires up, and then we'll reprogram the computer for the sensor. So the next step will be just lining the steering column up with the body and putting that long bolt through the back, which holds that motor up. So we'll get to work on that. I'd like to show it to you, but it's pretty hard to get, but you'll see it when you get back in there. That long bolt goes all the way through. Comes out the other end, it's got a nut. So anyway, we'll start to put this back up there. Alright, so hopefully the camera's picking that up. We're on the right side of the steering column where the long bolt goes through. And you put the nut up there and start it, and then there's a bracket, there's like a molded bracket that holds that nut once you get it started. So then you just run this bolt until it's tight. And then here's the other two bolts I was talking about. There's one right here and one right here. Those are the three that hold the steering column to the body. The trickiest one's probably the one in the back, especially getting that nut up there. You got to really get under there and get two arms under there and get it going. So anyway, it's tight now, and then we'll just hook up our wires and we'll get it going. And don't forget to tighten this. This is your pinch bolt that goes, hooks your knuckle up to your steering shaft. So all the steering column part is done. So now it's just reverse as far as putting the panels back on. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll fire up the autel and reset the computer and see how she works. Alright, so once you get it all put back together, you want to go in with your scan tool. If you have a good scan tool. If you don't have a good scan tool, I probably wouldn't do this job yourself, because you need to go in and do a torque sensor calibration, a steering position calibration to finish this off. You can see here the steering wheel is nice and firm. The power steering is working real good. A lot of people assume it's the motor itself when they have this problem. Don't assume that, because this torque sensor, angle sensor, is a pretty common thing on these cars. And I've heard GM just replaces the whole both pieces at once. But these motors are pretty expensive, so if you don't have to change it, it's better not to change it. If it's losing a signal with that torque sensor, it won't work. So that's what it was on this. I haven't drove it yet, but I can tell the steering's working real good. Before, it wouldn't even work. Half the time you'd start it up, and also we're not getting the steering, power steering message on the car. So I'm gonna go take it for a little ride, but this thing's pretty much good to go at this point. It's not a real hard job. Like I said, the biggest thing, if you don't have the right scan tool to recalibrate it, I'm not sure I would do it on my own. But if you happen to have a pretty good scan tool, or you have a buddy that has a good one or something like that, you can save yourself quite a bit of money and do it yourself. The sensor itself is about it's close to $300, $280. You could probably get it online cheaper. I'm not sure. I didn't look. But you're going to have probably an hour and a half, 2 hours into it. Just a little piddly stuff kind of hangs you up on it. But it's not, if if you do it yourself, you'll save quite a bit of money. But anyway, we're gonna take this for a ride and get this done. If this video helped you in any way, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Get this hoopty back on the road.